Hello everybody! So today's video, we want to go over what an IEP meeting looks like and give you guys some tips and tricks on how to survive an IEP meeting and things that we wish we would have known before stepping into an IEP meeting. So Will has the IEP, one of our son's IEPs on his phone, and we're just gonna go over topics and what they bring up first and things to just be aware of.
So the first thing in an IEP meeting usually happens is introductions. So everyone will go around the room, say who they are and what they do.
Mm-hmm. Even the parents get introduced.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, even if they're on Zoom. Everybody
in the room, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what's the next thing?
And then after that, there's like an input portion where like everybody kind of gets to say something about the child, including the parents.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so, and you can say, that's one thing that we kind of learned in this IEP meeting, is that you can say anything you want in that section.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to go back and say something, like something comes up and something's not going to be in the IEP meeting later, you can say, oh, can I put this in my parent input? And like, just to get it in, because you're allowed to put whatever you want in that parent input.
Yes. And so that's kind of important for legality, for just things that the school's not following through or that you're concerned about. It's just good to have all your concerns in somewhere in the IEP. It's just very important. So then what's next, from what I can remember, is that each person talks about the teacher, the speech therapist, OT, PT, anyone that works with your child, the regular education teacher, all has a comment, right? That was next?
Yeah.
About your child and what their strengths are.
Or their present levels, is that?
Yeah, that's kind of.
Yeah, like where they're at. Yeah.
Yes, and that's always, it's nice. I'm glad they always open it with the positives.
And what they're working on.
Yes. And then for me, my biggest tip is to ask as many questions as possible. In the world of COVID right now, we are not allowed to go into school. We're not allowed to see what's going on. And yes, of course, we have a parent-teacher meeting and we have email up to our teachers, but it's face-to-face is really hard. Even though we pick up our boys at the end of the day and we can ask questions really quickly, but it's kind of chaotic. So to me, this is a time to get your questions out, to be detailed, and really get the teachers to explain what is going on. Like this IEP meeting, we told them about Sawyer, that we don't really know what's going on during his day. We do get a little update every day that they send us via email, but it's not enough to ask Sawyer questions or to get more information out of him. And she's now trying to implement more in the emails so we can discuss his day with him, to have a kind of trying to have conversation with him. So my tip is to ask as many questions and to not feel like you're being rude or you are wasting their time. You are the parent and you should be allowed to ask as many questions as possible. Right?
Yeah.
What's the next part?
And then one of the next things to go over is called consideration of special factors, which it's like a yes or no kind of questions that go over whether or not certain special factors need to be implemented when they're at school.
Can you give an example?
For example, do they need a behavior plan? Is the student deaf or hard of hearing? Do they have unique communication needs? Do they need assistive technology or devices?
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that, where it's just like a yes or no kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I want to say this really quick. This is Colorado's IEP. I know each state, I think counties can be even different. Mm-hmm. So be prepared. This might not be exactly, if you're in a different state, what it looks like, but I believe overall it's similar.
Right.
So
pretty much these things are in all the IEPs, because an IEP is a federal document. Mm-hmm. But they can look a little bit different, but mostly, so they might be a different order. Mm-hmm. How the IEP is laid out. But all these things should pretty much be in there.
Yes,
as far as we know.
Don't be shocked if it's different order or they're saying things a little bit different. But we've done some in New York now, we've done some here now. I've asked some friends what it's like. It's overall very similar.
So then each of either the teachers and therapists will each go over what the students, what that like specific teacher or therapist is working on with the student, their goals, and what their like objectives are.
But they're trying to meet their IEPs. Yeah.
Yeah, and that, like from what was explained, a goal is like an endpoint, and once they meet that goal, then they'll have a new goal. And an objective is like steps to get to that goal.
Mm-hmm. Well, that was when we learned this last IEP.
Yeah.
Which I was like, oh, okay, very cool.
Right, and all those things will be written out, but each person will kind of go over what their goals are, and objectives to get to those goals. The next thing that will be in the IEP are accommodations and modifications, and these are like, so I'll say what it says, like what type of accommodations, if any, is necessary for the student to access general curriculum and or appropriate activities to make effective progress. So what that is basically going to list in there is like what things need to be in place in order for the student to best learn, like have the best chance to learn in school. And those things can be like safety supports or visual supports, repetition of skills, preferential seating, like different things that they'll need so they can have the best chance of success, basically. Yeah. Yes. Anything you want to say about it?
No, I feel like there should be 1-to-1 in there, and art doesn't have that in our IEP, because they don't do 1-to-1s where we are.
And also, so then that's like accommodations, and modifications is like whether or not like certain standards, like a standard that like every kid general ed would have, whether or not those standards need to be modified for the student, so based on their like learning ability. Next, in ours, it has extended school year determination, which is basically whether or not they should qualify for like summer school, so that it's basically what it goes over is like, or what they consider for this is whether or not the student has like setbacks when they're away from school for like a period of time. Mm-hmm. Whether or not they're forgetting what they've learned.
Yeah.
And so this would be like if a student is forgetting that stuff, they would go to they would say, okay, yes, this student needs to be in summer school, so that they're like reinforcing what they learned through the year, so that when they go back the next year, they don't have to start all over and like they forgot everything.
Yes. And we're pretty sure Griffin and Sawyer will qualify. I mean, we see regression even when they had like a week off from school, but this is what, we hired a lawyer for, so when we go do this meeting in May, we can be like, yes, they need it. And yeah, there's more to this, but yeah.
But also they might qualify just because like at the moment like their IEPs aren't being met, especially Sawyer's, for the amount of time he's supposed to be in general ed. That's not being met right now. So what the school district has said they're going to do is we'll give you schooling in the summer so that it can make up for those hours that are being lost.
Yes, they said summer school or even 1-to-1 education together. So yes, I know it's not the perfect solution, but it's something, so we're taking it.
The next section in RIP are state and district assessments. And for our kids, because they haven't done the assessments yet since they're in kindergarten, they don't do assessments till I think like 2nd grade.
I think so. I think that's what they said.
So this part, like, there's not, for us, it's not really anything, but like it's basically just listing the things that the student will participate in for assessments, like math, science, English, arts. Mm-hmm. So like whether or not they would participate in those tests. Mm-hmm. The next section in the IEP talks about how much time the student is spending, in ours it's per week, it could be per month or per day, with like with each of the therapists, how much they're in the special education room, how much they're in general ed. So that's kind of where they get their percentages on how much time they're in general ed and in special. Yeah, what I just said.
Yeah. Which is we know for a fact, every state, every county can look different. They can be minutes, they can be hours, just like he said. Like it's crazy how different it can be.
Right. It could be day, week, month, or it could be minutes, hours.
They'll be caught off guard if yours looks different.
So then the next section talks about the recommended placement in the least restrictive environment. So what that means is like what percentage of time the child should be in general ed is basically what it comes down to. Like for Colorado, or at least for our district, they're like ranges of percentages of time, and that's kind of where you go off that chart of how much they're in therapy and special ed and stuff. And if you see how much they're in the special ed, then you kind of take from that, okay, well then they're in general ed this much.
So that is pretty much what an IEP looks like in a nutshell. It's roughly about an hour to an hour and a half long. Depends on the circumstance. I would say, again, like my biggest tip is to ask as many questions as humanly possible. You are allowed to record the meeting as long as you tell the school that you're going to do it, which means like audio record. You're allowed to get a lawyer, an advocate. You're allowed to have family members in by Zoom. You're allowed to have as many people there as possible, I think, or there might be a cutoff. I'm not sure. Can't have 20. I don't know. But yeah, again, if you can't have a lawyer like we did this last time, you are your child's advocate, and keep asking questions and keep saying, hold them accountable if the IEP is not going well.
Yeah, and if like something doesn't sound right, speak up. That's the time to speak up. And I definitely did this last time. I do think, again, like the lawyer was game changing for the situation. The district listened. The district was there. They knew we meant business, and we were not going to back down, and we will continue to do that for sure. An IEP meeting can be very intense and very emotional. Be prepared that you are not going to feel the best after this. You're going to be very emotional. Most IEP meetings I have left, I've cried. It's getting better every time. It is hard to hear your children's struggles. It is very, very hard. So just know that it could be very emotional. But I think that is it. I hope we answered everyone's questions about this. If you have any questions about this, please comment down below and we'll try to comment back. I hope this helped. Thank you for watching, and like and subscribe, and don't forget, guys, you are wonderful. Bye. Bye.